welcome everyone. Welcome to Innovation Journeys Live. My name is Jessica. I'm excited to have you here today with us. We have a very special innovation journey for you today. I'm really excited to have you here with us. In the past, we have been sharing our innovation journeys that feature our historic artifacts like the Allegheny and the Model T. And this week we have a live interview with entrepreneurial innovator Melvin Parson. And we're going to talk to him shortly in just a minute. Before we do that, we did have a question from last week's innovation journey. If you remember last week, we talked about the Model T, and we talked about the Model T's role as a social agent of change. We had a lot of questions that came in, and thanks to everybody who submitted. So many of those questions were great. I did have one that seemed to be pretty common, and so we reached out to Matt Anderson, our Curator of Transportation here at the Henry Ford, to get an answer. The viewer asked, what were the main materials used to make the Model T, and how did they get them? And so Matt Anderson said that some of the most prominent materials in the early, so like the pre-1914 days, the Model Ts were made from vanadium steel, cast iron, wood, brass, leather, and rubber. As production continued, Ford lowered prices by replacing those materials with less expensive alternatives. So for example, the brass radiators were replaced with steel, and the leather upholstery was replaced with imitation leatherette. So that's how he helped to get some of those prices down. Ford sourced many of those materials from outside vendors, especially most notably the Dodge brothers supplied transmissions, axles, engine parts to Ford into 1914. When Ford moved to Highland Park in 1910, and then the implementation of the moving assembly line in 1913, Ford began to build more of those components in-house. But still a lot of those raw materials came from outside vendors. So thanks to Matt Anderson for including this really great detailed answer on our innovation journey from last week. If you missed it, please check it out on Facebook. It was a really great innovation journey, and we had a really great time taking a look at the Model T. This week, we are going to talk about an entrepreneurial journey. Before we do, though, I want to quickly review our learning framework. Remind everyone that the Henry Ford's Innovation Learning Framework is Model I, so the habits and actions of innovation. They work together as a set of guideposts. It helps us to evaluate and study innovation of the past, but we like to talk to teachers and students about how innovation today can be inspired to students using this framework. So by practicing the habits and actions of innovation, as you see here, uncovering, defining, designing, those are our actions, and our habits, staying curious, collaborating, learning from failure. These are the ways that students can practice innovation on their own innovation journeys. So I am going to stop sharing my screen because I'm going to bring in our special guest today. First, let me introduce to you Alex. Alex is a team member with me at the Henry Ford, and she's going to be helping today with our questions and answers. So as you think of questions today to ask Melvin, please submit those using the question and answer share button at the bottom of your screen. If you're watching on Facebook, please send us a comment. And we're going to bring in Melvin now. I'd like to bring in the man of the hour, Melvin Parson. Farmer Parson, as he likes to go by. He was Henry Ford's first entrepreneur in residence back in 2019. He is the founder of the We the People Opportunity Center. And today is also Melvin's birthday. And so we are really excited to have Melvin with us, and thank you so much for sharing your special day with us today.
Thank you, Jessica.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't we start today by having you tell us a little bit about the We the People Opportunity Center and where the idea came from and why you decided to get into this opportunity center.
Sure, I'd be glad to. And again, first of all, I want to thank you and Henry Ford and Alex and a couple other people behind the scenes that's been really instrumental in my um, connection with you all, Lucy Howell and Anita Davis and the like. And I'll start by saying we recently had a name change. And so we started out as the We the People Opportunity Center, but our name currently is We the People Opportunity Farm. And as many folks know, it's a nonprofit organization. And our mission is to break the cycle of incarceration here in Washtenaw County, where our farm resides. And so a little bit about my journey. I tell a lot of folks that as back in 2014, I could not even spell vegetable, and had really no idea how this thing kind of just continues to grow and morph and take on a life of its own. And there were a few people early on that were super instrumental in this kind of like synthesizing in the way that it did. Um, and I somehow inherited a raised vegetable bed back in 2014 that I didn't ask for, and just kind of rolled with it. And I was given some seedlings, and I planted them in the ground, and they started to grow. And a couple things happened in that same month of April in 2014. I turned 50 years old that year, so I'm dating myself. So I'm 56 today. Um, and so some things started to grow, and it made me interested in where my food came from. Uh, and I saw a documentary called Food Inc. If anybody's out there has seen that, and it was really mind blowing to me. Um, and plus turning 50, I got a midlife crisis going on, but I'm poor, so I can't buy a Corvette or a Lamborghini or something like that. So I decided to try to change my relationship with food and find out what that was all about. And that led me down to a farmer's market, a really robust farmer's market. And inside that farmer's market, as I spent sometimes an hour or more trying to figure out what radish was or kale or something like that, I would see no one that looked like me. And then I looked around at the folks that were selling me my food, and none of them looked like me either. And as some of you know, I'm a firm believer. I'm a champion of social justice and social equality. And I'm a firm believer that either you've got a seat at the table or it's your behind that's on the menu. And it felt like in that moment, the universe opened up the heavens and yelled down to me and said, "Hey, Melvin, this is where I want you to sit at." And ever since then, it feels like the universe has not only conspired to make sure that I've got a seat at the table, but also that I've got a voice at the table. And it feels like if this thing continues on this trajectory, the organization that I'm a part of, that I'm the executive director of, will have an opportunity to set the table in some way that speaks to equity and social justice and food justice.
Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. I'm curious how you see, if you could explain for us. I know that you've talked about this before. How is it that you see access to healthy food as also a social justice issue? How do those two issues kind of relate and pair together for you?
So that's a great question. So those two issues kind of relate and match up for me. Even where I live at currently, there are no grocery stores for miles around, at least 5 miles or something like that. And and where our farm is located, it's located in a wonderful neighborhood, affectionately known as the Sugarbrook neighborhood. There are no healthy food choices available. Again, and the nearest grocery store is quite a ways away. Um, and and so I think the sexy word a few years ago was those neighborhoods were considered food deserts or something like that. And it's not so and it is, they are food deserts, but also they suffer more from just simply healthy food choices. And somehow along the way, I think in the last couple of decades, it seems like healthy food has become monetized. So to eat healthy or to eat in an organic way, it costs money, uh, which kind of pushes poor folks out of the equation in that, and so they don't have those choices. Um, and so hopefully, we would like to see more people, even now in light of this COVID-19, take this opportunity to start growing their own food and becoming more resourceful themselves and more dependent on them and not of what's available in their
Yeah.
surrounding area.
Yeah, that's a really important issue. You're right about that. I did, before we talk about how you've kind of pivoted and changed and what advice you have for everybody here to build their own gardens, I'm curious, why did you choose to do this? You could have gone in a lot of places, right, and built a huge farm on a big piece of land, maybe out in a rural area where, where there was more opportunities for farming, where people more traditionally farm. Why did you pick to build in Washtenaw County?
Um, I picked to build in Washtenaw County simply because I live in Washtenaw County. I currently live in Ypsilanti, which is a wonderful city. I love Ypsilanti. Um, we wound up with a parcel of land where we're still currently at. We're leasing some land from a wonderful church called Grace Fellowship Church House of Solutions. And it sits inside Ypsilanti Township, but more importantly, it sits right inside of a neighborhood. It's right inside of community. And part of our organization's focus and things, something that's really near and dear to my heart, is building community. Uh, it, it's been a challenge for us over the last couple of years as we've looked to expand our work, to try to find a parcel of land inside a community, so we don't end up kind of displacing ourselves and being somewhere rural and negating that community impact that we'd like to have. But for the time being, we've got a great partner with the church, and we're comfortable there. But we've got hopes of expanding, and hopefully we can still land and rest somewhere within inside a neighborhood so that we can build those relationships with them.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's a great mission to have. I love it. I'm going to ask Alex if I see a bunch of questions coming in here at the bottom of the screen. So maybe Alex has a question for you.
Hi, everyone. I do have some good questions for you, Melvin. I'm going to
All right.
start with a question from Caroline, and she asks what you grow in your garden. She grows tomatoes, cucumbers, and basil.
Oh, okay. Hi, Caroline. We grow one of those products. We grow tomatoes. I think this year we're going to be growing a couple of varieties of tomatoes. We also grow 2 varieties of kale, a couple of varieties of collard greens, and jalapeno peppers. Now, based upon our business model, and our business model was, and I say was because I think we are making a pivot in light of the COVID-19. But our business model was based upon sales to restaurants to help generate funds for us to continue to work. And so with that being said, and having conversations with farmers before, a lot of them had told me they wish they would have started small and grew just a few things and learned how to grow a few things well, instead of starting with growing a bunch of things and just kind of like scrambling in that way. So we just focus on those 4 things to work towards sales to the restaurants. Now, in light of, well, I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the optimized portion of it.
Go right ahead. I know that you were saying that your original business model was to sell to the restaurants, but with all the restaurants being closed, at least to, diners coming into the restaurant, I think that's had a big impact on a lot of people. So how have you been able to pivot in all of this?
Thanks for asking that. And again, thanks for the question, Carol. Uh, our natural pivot for the organization seems to be shifting our model from going towards sales to restaurants, and figuring out how to be the best community partner that we can be within that neighborhood. And so for us, that means instead of concentrating on the restaurants, we want to concentrate on the folks within the community. Fortunately, the pivot that makes most sense to our organization is making sure that the food that we grow winds up on the tables of those in that community that are already feeling the impact of food scarcity, and making sure that they wind up with some of our fresh produce on their tables. And the church that we currently lease lands from, they have a bi-weekly food pantry, and we're going to start discussions with them as to the best fit for us to introduce the produce that we grow on their land to end up in their food pantry so that it can go to those that can truly benefit from it.
That's really great. I'm glad to hear that not only, you and the Opportunity Farm are able to pivot through all of that, but also you're able to help the community still. It's so really important.
Yeah, and I want to say, and much thanks to United Way of Washtenaw County. They were able to help us with our pivot and not feel the financial crunch from having do so. We were the recent recipient of an award from them. They've got United Way COVID-19 Relief Fund, and we applied for that and were awarded some monies that allows us to shift our organization's focus and not feel that I'm doing so. So a huge shout out to them.
That's awesome. That's really great. That's really, really great. Alex, I see some more questions coming in. I don't know if you want to jump in with a question or two.
Yeah, so I got a really great question. What is a difficult circumstance that you have had to overcome in your journey?
Oh, shucks. Let's see. Difficult circumstances. There's been a few, but there's also been a lot of support in overcoming those. I think the one that stands out to me most is something that happened last year. Last year I was involved, well, let me just really be blunt. Last year I nearly killed myself in a car accident that I was involved in, that I was at fault. And thankfully, no one else got hurt in that car accident, but I broke my neck. I wind up breaking my neck in 3 places as a result of that. And thankfully, I've got no nerve damage, no neck pain from that. That's truly a miracle in and of itself. But that accident was a huge reset for me in a lot of different ways. And it brought home to me what it's like not to take care of yourself. And so as a result of that accident, it really hyper-focused me in a lot of ways on self-care. So I pay a lot of attention to that now. And that was a huge challenge, that comes to mind from that question.
Yeah, that's really great advice to share with everybody, especially in these challenging times, to take care of ourselves and keep that at the front of our thoughts and our minds as we go through this really historic time.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's important that we follow those CDC guidelines and social distancing and hand washing and all that. But I feel like this thing isn't getting ready to blow over anytime soon. And as a result of that, I think us paying as much attention to our mental health
Yeah.
and creating a strategy that will allow us to stay mentally sane and sound is super important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, you bet. I know today is the 50th anniversary of Earth Day.
Yeah.
And I have heard recently that that eating more vegetables is a good thing to do for Mother Earth, that it takes a lot of water to produce beef and other kinds of meat, and that more vegetables is a green choice. So maybe there's a lot of people watching right now and they're thinking, hey, I'd love to make a garden, but I can't grow anything. I can't even keep a house plant alive. What kind of advice would you have for them as they're watching you and they're thinking, maybe I'll start a garden, you know, it's the right time of year, maybe I should do this. What advice do you have for them?
Yeah, that's a great philosophy. Right. And now is the right time. Like there's no time like now. And the advice I have is make sure you get some good soil.
Okay.
You know, it's all of, that's the thing that I've learned more than anything else in this whole farming experience is that it's all about the soil. Um, I remember in 2017, in reflection, I really didn't know what I was doing, and I wound up growing some really good produce, and how I knew was because the chefs would tell me, "Hey, man, this is amazing produce," and I was just as surprised as they were, right? Because it wasn't my intention. Of course, I wanted to grow some good food, but it wasn't really my intention. But what was instinctively my intention was to make sure that the soil was good. And so I added amendments organically, added organic amendments. And as a result of that, I grew some really good food. And in reflection, it made me come to the conclusion it's all about the soil. And I think having been a recent graduate from Eastern Michigan's University School of Social Work program, it dawned on me that the same thing applies to human beings, right? Like it's all about our soil. You know, if we grow in some good soil, chances are we'll flourish, just like those plants did. And chances are, if we're not in good soil, chances are we won't, right? And so that's why I've got this background picture that it really resonates to me, and that's what growing in good soil looks like. But back to that question, I would say start out with some good soil. Find out what your shade looks like, your shade percentage, whether it's partial shade or full sun or no shade, and then find out what best vegetables grow best or fruits grow best in that, and get to digging, get your hands in there.
I know you've talked about that a lot, that really great feeling of just putting your hands in the dirt and just, it really feels like just meaningful to you.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. That's really wonderful. Alex, do you have any more questions for Melvin?
I do. I have a great question, and I've seen a little bit about this, but it would be great if you could elaborate on it. Lucy asks if kids help you in your urban garden.
Oh yeah. We've had some wonderful interactions with kids that live in the neighborhood, or whose parents have brought them out there with them as they volunteer and help us move things forward. I've had a couple of kids, their brothers, and they live almost directly across from the farm, and they come over and they like to eat green vegetables. And so I nicknamed them the green veggie eaters. But I think the thing that has stood out the most, the interaction that's most stood out to me was a 3 years ago. There were a couple of young lads. One was 12 and I think the other one was 13. And they would climb the fence from the housing division that's buttressed up next to the farm or the church property. And they would go over and play some basketball. And one day I needed some help with something. So I asked them to come and help me. And they came over and helped. And the next day they saw me out there and they came over to me and said, hey, can we help you? And I was like, sure, of course you can. And a couple of encounters later, and they were out there, I think planting some kale. One of them said to me, hey, Farmer Parson, have you ever been to jail? And I was like, whoa, yes, finally, we're about to have a real heart-to-heart conversation. And so I said to the kid, because that has been my experience, I said to the kid, yes, I've been to jail, right? And the other kid kind of chimed in with, I think, a false sense of excitement. He was like, oh, what are you going to jail for? What are you going to jail for? And so I thought to myself, it wasn't that he was excited to find out what I went to jail for, as much as he was trying to figure out how to normalize that as that potentially becoming his experience. Mm. And so with that, I said to the kid, hey kid, it doesn't matter what I've gone to jail for. What matters is that we figure out a way to make sure that you don't go to jail, right? That's not your experience, right? And also what matters is that we figure out a way, given the resources or lack of resources that you have at your disposal, that you graduate from high school and that you go on to college and that you get a degree, which could equate to you being able to drive a car that you need, or being able to live somewhere that you want to live, and being able to eat what you want to eat, right? And what also matters is that you be as kind and respectful to not only yourself, but to those around you. And the last and most important thing that matters is whenever you see me out here, come over here and ask me if I need a hand.
You bet, absolutely. But that's what it's about, right? Is bringing this sense of community and sense of purpose to the farm. And that's awesome. That's great that you're building that. That's a really powerful, meaningful thing that you're doing. And that's fantastic. And I think that's a lot of what the Opportunity Farm is about, right? Is developing those relationships. So that's wonderful. If people are watching at home, how could they get involved? What advice do you have for them, either to help you out with your organization, or what other things could they do as well to make a difference?
Oh, thanks for asking. So there's a couple of things that come to mind, but currently, and in the past, we've gotten over 500 folks come out to our farm and volunteer, different organizations, individuals, and such. But in light of the COVID-19, we're still, as an organization, figuring out what our role and responsibilities in terms of guidelines and safety procedures and protocols look like to have folks out there, because we want to make sure above and beyond anything else that if we have volunteers out there, that they're safe, right? Like we're not putting them at risk. So we're still working on that. And please feel free to again to stay in touch with us through our social media pages, which is We the People Opportunity Farm, which is on Facebook. Also our Instagram page, which I believe is WTPOF, and our new website, which is WTPOF.org. The new website is still it's still in development, so there are some things we're currently working on. But on there we have a donation page, and please, we could certainly use support in that way. And we could just, use support in folks reaching out and saying, hey, keep up the good work, or just ask questions. We're open to critical analysis. We feel as though as an organization that's important, and it allows us to potentially look at some things that we may miss. We want to be a world-class organization. We want to be as meaningful and impacting in the lives of those we touch as we can. We're currently working on developing our 9-month paid internship program, where we'll be bringing in folks in partnership with the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Office Street Outreach Program into our system. And we'll keep everyone updated about that. We're super, super excited about this partnership with them. And we're super, super excited to share our progress with everyone.
That's wonderful. That's great. Yeah, that internship program sounds really, really important. So that's exciting to hear about, definitely.
Yeah, paid internship.
Yeah, wow. I mean, that's unheard of, right? That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, it sounds like you're still on your innovation journey, still moving and adjusting and going with the times as you grow your outreach and you grow your community. And it's really exciting. And Melvin, I can't thank you enough for being with us today, for joining us and sharing us about your experience. And it's just been awesome to have you. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. And happy birthday to you. Yeah. I hope you have a wonderful day today. And I hope you enjoy it and get out there and do something fun on your farm, probably, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jessica, so much. And thank you again to everyone, each and every one who's been impactful and who I've met along my entrepreneurial journey at the Henry Ford. You certainly have made a difference in my life, and I really, really appreciate the support.
Yeah, that's great. I think you've impacted a lot of lives too, Melvin. So thank you for that. Absolutely. So I'm going to start sharing my screen again here because I want to take the viewers through the rest of our experience. So we talked about our innovation journey. I do want to share Melvin's website with everyone, We the People Opportunity Center, We the People Farm. As he mentioned, you can find him at wptof.org. And he's got several great posts and blog posts about what they're doing and the new events that are happening with his opportunity center. So check out his webpage definitely and see what he's up to. We also at the Henry Ford have curated some interviews with Melvin and put them together on our webpage in an expert set. So if you're interested in hearing more about Melvin's journey, especially when he was with the Henry Ford as our entrepreneur in residence, check out those interviews. A lot of great advice, thoughtful information included in there. If you want to try out our free Innovate curriculum, it's free right now on the Henry Ford's website, Innovate. The Innovate curriculum is a really great interactive, interdisciplinary resource that can be used to inspire your students, your young learners at home to begin their own innovation journey. If they felt inspired by listening to Melvin's story, this is a great place to get them started and get them moving forward on their own innovation journey. Especially Innovate 104, Activate Your Potential. That's a really great series of lessons that can help kids get started with what they think are their ideas and how they can make an impact in their communities. You can also check out thf.org/learn online, where you can find all kinds of fun resources. All of these resources are being provided free right now. thanks to donations from everyone watching, and so we really appreciate that. And we want to thank you for your support. We thank you deeply from the Henry Ford. These events wouldn't be possible without your continued support. So thanks to everyone watching. We'll see you next week for another innovation journey, and have a great day today.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.